So let's start with this one. This is massive freaking news. This came out from Jeff Snyder yesterday on his newsletter, and then he talked a bit about it on the Hot Mic podcast last night with John Roca. Absolutely loaded show last night. I feel like Roca and Snyder have been on fire lately, and I just want to give them props. I think they're doing a great job. The news is Rory McCain will replace Ray Stevenson's role of Baylon Skull in Ahsoka Season 2. The Hound becomes Baylan. Now, couple of things here. Jeff said that this is a thing. This is an exclusive. This is an exclusive that he reported. He said he held this for a week, meaning he heard about it last week. He is, but by making it an exclusive, he's basically saying it's real. Many people have corroborated this. This is real. Okay, so we're going to talk about some stuff later that he's reporting as rumor, you know, and then the T'Challa stuff's a rumor, and we're like, what the hell does that mean? This one, we can be pretty sure this is real. Okay? Couple of different things going on here. I think number one, unlike what is happening with Black Panther and, you know, some of these other characters, we all suspected that Ray Stevenson's role would be recast. Okay? For a couple of reasons. Number one, the Baylan character is so important to that story in Star Wars overall. Man, I'm trying not to get too lost in the weeds here because I have so many thoughts, so many emotions about this. But on a side note, I'll just say, man, Ahsoka, I remember when Ahsoka came out, I was a huge fan. We rewatched it late last year. I think it's great. I think the final few episodes are lacking, but I think overall the show's fantastic. I feel like it was unfairly treated. And I think now, a year plus removed from it, and now that we see that, like, Skeleton Kids is getting even worse viewership than Acolyte, at least at the start, and Acolyte did what it did, and just in general, Star Wars has been on this crazy decline. Mando Season 3, what the fuck? Ahsoka is like a shining example of winning. I think you look at the numbers, I think you look at what the fans were talking about, and I think even some of the haters would have to admit, yeah, things were better back then. I'm going to be real. Like, things were better when Ahsoka was airing. So that show has become more important, not less important, more important because of how the shows that came out after it have performed. So going back to the character, we all assumed this character would be recast because, number one, such an important character. Baylan might be the most interesting new Star Wars character to be created in, I don't know what, the last decade? Maybe decade plus? Grogu is, of course, massive. I think some of us are kind of over Grogu at this point, you know what I mean? Mandalorian, great character, really awesome. You could even say Omega, new character and cool. She grew on me over time. I actually like the Omega character. But what Ray did and what Dave did with the writing with regards to Baylan, man, this is something special. We have not had something like this in Star Wars for some time. We also know because of the way that show ended with Baylan leaving Shin, leaving his responsibilities, seeking fully the power, this ultimate power, which I, of course, believe is Abeloth. I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest it's Abeloth. That cliffhanger at the end of Season 2, it made it pretty clear that we were going to get more Rey. And remember, they released that after Rey had passed. Rey passed before the whole show came out, unless I'm mistaken. So we knew that. We also knew because of the rumors of it getting a Season 2 that, yeah, we were going to get this character recast. The character's too important, and his story is too big of a deal for them to just let it go. Now, there's another aspect to this that Jeff talked about that I think is great. Apparently, Rory was actually friends with Ray Stevenson. And beyond that, he's still close with Ray's widow. And Ray's widow gave her blessing to Rory taking over this role. So, in these situations, like even the T'Challa stuff, right? Because it's like weird, right? We spoke to this a lot. I acknowledge the people at Marvel Studios being in a weird spot. They're close to this in a way that I am not. They made decisions that they felt were the right way at the time, and maybe they were for the time. There's always a consideration and a question, how are we going to honor the legacy of this person that did this before? Right? And I think the fact that Rory has an actual connection to Rey, that they were actually friends, and the fact that Rey's widow has given her blessing, that will go a long way to sort of ease how the fans feel about this and to connect us more to the actual performance and the character that Rey established, and perhaps give us a sort of easier transition into Rory as the character. I think that's great. I think that's really feel good. And especially for a brand like Star Wars, which was at one time and hopefully can find its way again to being generally a family-friendly, positive brand. You know what I mean? Like, Star Wars is supposed to be hopeful. Star Wars is supposed to be about family. Star Wars is supposed to kind of be deeply meaningful to the individual experience of a person. So it's cool to have that established for this transition, and it probably means that you will get a lot of respecting Rey, honoring his legacy through the press tour, through the interviews, through social media posts, through all of that sort of stuff. So all of that's incredibly positive. Now that brings us to maybe the ultimate question of this at the end of the day, with all of those things aside. Is this good casting? You know, we just talked about a lot of cool things about this, but do we think he could play the character of Baylon Skull? And I gotta say, I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. He's obviously different than Rey. And I think the thing that was interesting about Baylan, right, was he had this like softness and this philosophical aspect to him, but he was also like really powerful and adept at fighting and combat and all of these things, right? So I think Rory's a good actor. I think physically they are similar. I do think Rory is a little bit more, he's less soft. Not to say that he couldn't perform that way, and I'm sure he's like practicing and thinking about these very things right now. So I think from a physical perspective, they're similar. I think the way they perform might be slightly different. There might be some baggage with how we saw the Hound, and will we see the Hound when we see this new Baylon Skull? That's an obvious concern. But something that Roka brought up last night on the pod was like, it's possible that Baylan, the next time we see him, because technically the show ends with him going towards that thing, which I think is the pool of knowledge, which will be where Abeloth is, et cetera, right? So if the next time we see Baylan is post-Abeloth encounter, then they might make him look very different. You know, he could be sithed out a little bit. He could have the fangs and the crooked smile. He could have shadows and darkness under his eyes. He could, there's all sorts of things that they could do, right? So with that in mind, I think it could be pretty interesting. You know, technically, Rory might be playing a different version of Baylan, one that has been fully corrupted by Abeloth, which could be really cool. So I, as a Star Wars fan, I'm into it. I think it's a good pick. It feels respectful, and I have no issues with them recasting and moving forward. It does feel like it's going to be good, and I'm very happy that we're getting more Baylan. I mean, again, Baylan is so interesting. The story he's on is fascinating. It's probably the best part of the show, to be real. So overall, big W as far as I'm concerned. Of course, we're going to have to see how it actually operates in the show. And if he's like talking about eating all the chickens on, you know, that Peridia planet and stuff like that, it might shake me a little bit. I might not be into that shit. But for now, feels right, man. So what do you guys make of this situation? What do you think about the recasting here? Do you agree that it's good? Do you think fans are going to like it? Give me your thoughts.